This is Karen from NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Just for the Spell of It with Gary Moss. And some of you may know him by the name of Wordman. Isn't that your title?
Letterman.
Letterman. I'm sorry. Yeah. Not the Letterman, but the Letterman.
Right. I created the character Letterman. This has to be about 10 years ago. And I had a series on, not Facebook. What is the series that we use when we bring someone else on?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
What is the form that we use when we brought Nancy on?
We did a Zoom. So it was.
We did a Zoom.
Yep.
Okay, but it was on a format. So I created a costume. It was a Superman costume, but instead of the letter S on the chest, I had the letter L for letter, and I was Letterman, cape and all.
Yes, you were.
And I could leap anagrams in a single bound.
How about those tall buildings?
Well, the ones that had signs and letters on the top, those I could leap.
Okay.
So anyways, that's where I got Letterman. And some of those still hang on, I believe. What am I trying to think
YouTube.
of?
You have it on YouTube. That's right.
YouTube.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, that's
all right.
the format.
That's the format.
So if you go there to YouTube and you punch in letter.man.moss, I might come up.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure that we look for that. So this past week, I've been noticing something in your blogs, which is very interesting. You're using a letter a day to get us motivated with words and creating learning tools.
Yes, that's true. I'm all about creating learning tools. I've probably been doing this for, would you believe, 60 years. I started creating learning tools before I even began going to college. I've always been working with students and with kids. And I was just thinking of this the other day, that when I was still in my teens, one of the summer jobs that I had was at a summer day camp at a community center. And for some reason, the leadership thought that teenage boys would be able to relate with 5- and 6-year-old boys. So those were the people that I was in charge of. And so I had to make out lesson plans and activity plans for these kids. And so there I was, 15, 16 years old, and already given the task of trying to create activities that were interesting and that would keep people engaged. And from there, I completed high school. While I was going to high school and right afterwards, I became the leader of a youth group at the synagogue that I belonged to. And so I was creating different kind of activities, but there I was again. And then after that, I enrolled in college and I went on to become a teacher. And so I was practicing writing lesson plans for kids in school. And then all of a sudden, about 30 years ago, when I discovered competitive Scrabble, one of the things that I knew I had to do to become good at this was to bring myself up to speed. And how would I do that? Well, it fell right back in the lap of study tools. Um, so that's kind of something that's been part of me forever. And I use these tools for myself. I use it in my interaction with other people, especially in my class, Scrabble 101, where I'm trying to impart all this information to other people. And actually, I find it fun to make these different activities, and I find it quite challenging because every once in a while, um, in the struggle to make a tool, I rediscover something that I used 20 years ago, 50 years ago, and it still works. And one of the things that I've learned that I'm sure a lot of our listeners know is that we don't remember everything we know all the time. Things we learn, we become comfortable with, we put them aside, and we sort of forget them, but they live on deep in our memory.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, we come into a new situation where we need some kind of a tool, and it pops up like an old memory, like an old friend that we haven't seen in a long time. And it sort of guides us into this new adventure. I don't know if you've noticed this in my blogs, but I have my ear is attuned to things that I hear, not just hearing them at a surface level, but hearing them at a deeper level. During this COVID virus time, I'm with my computer in my easy chair in front of the TV, and frequently the TV is running for background noise. It's like an old comfortable shoe, an old friend. And every once in a while, something is said on there, on the news, on a program, on a commercial, that grabs my ear, and I hear it. And if you look at my blogs, there are a lot of things that seem amusing or kind of, where did he get that word from? And frequently, it's a line from a commercial.
Okay.
And one of the lines that I used in a blog that I wrote yesterday was from a Progressive insurance commercial. There's a guy who's one of the salesmen, and he's just gone on a sales trip, and he's brought back a set of pictures that he's sharing with some of the other sales staff. And one of the gals says to him, "Don't you have any really interesting pictures?" And he goes flipping through the pictures where he was at the ballet, and he took pictures of the mountains. And one picture is him doing what looks like is karate. And one of the others people in the room says, "Are you doing karate?" And he says, "No, that's Muay Thai. That's a completely different skill set."
Love it.
Well, the line that stuck with me was completely different skill set. And yesterday, that sent me on an adventure with thinking about how we learn, how we teach, And teaching and learning Scrabble is a different skill set from learning and teaching other kinds of information. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today is some of the tools that I have used that are very, very excellent to use in learning Scrabble, and things that you can do. Now, if you're just sitting by passively listening to this podcast, I appreciate you being there. But if you really want to become good at learning Scrabble information, especially words and large quantity of words, you would do very well by employing some of these tools and making a few of them for yourself. Let me begin with telling you what I see being different in the skill sets between just general learning and Scrabble learning. When we're preparing to learn a class or teach a class like social studies or even spelling or creative writing or music, we have a particular theme for a lesson. And that lesson has limits on it. A spelling lesson for the week might include 20 words, where on Monday you say the word and you write down the 20 words. And then on Tuesday you use them in a sentence. And on Wednesday you have a pre-test. Thursday you might have a little spelling bee in your class with those words. And then Friday you take the final class. So you spend this given amount of time, whether it's spelling or whether it's history or whatever it is, with a deep focus on that small amount of knowledge. At the end of the week, you pack it away and you go on to the next week with another package. That's how you teach in the public schools and the private schools when you're trying to convey this year's agenda, the 5th grade, the 10th grade, the first year in college. You have an agenda and you're trying to impart that. The completely different skill set which applies to Scrabble is you have someone who shows up to the first time they've appeared at a club meeting. And when they show up, they're pretty intimidated because, number one, they assume that everybody here in the club knows it all, which is not true. They have never been here before, so it's strange to them. So they feel a bit intimidated. And somewhere along the line, someone hands them the OWL or the OSPD dictionary, and there they have 170 plus thousand words, and you have to know it all now in order to compete. So the skill sets that we use are not about learning 20 words a week, but it's about how to learn to get up to speed with 170,000 words. Now, some of you are about to click off this podcast.
Don't do it yet.
You think it's totally impossible to meet that kind of a challenge. But I'll tell you, as scary as that sounds, and as impossible as that sounds, it's not impossible at all. And you're going to ask me now, well, do I know all 170,000 words? No. how much do I know? Oh, I would guess I know maybe 20 to 25%. So that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40,000 words. So now you're going to say, well, how can you compete if you only know 35, 40%? How are you going to compete at club? Well, here's what you have to know, and I've shared this many times. The average person in the crowd that's around you only knows 5%. They know between 7 and 8,000 words. That's why the newspapers write their daily news at a fifth grade level, because the average person on the street reads general information at a fifth grade level. And in order for the papers to sell and be successful, it has to cater to the masses. So that's the information you need in order to encourage you to go forward. Now, if you happen to be someone like me who finds learning and learning words in particular to be a fun activity, you've got the game pretty much won, because it's not going to take a whole lot to encourage you to take the next step. And that's what you have to customize yourself to doing. We'll learn a set of words today, but we don't wait till next Monday. As soon as we finish, we take another step and another step, and we're always on this road to accumulating words, and we put them in our arsenal. Now, the way we get them to stick in our memory, there are several techniques that focus on learning huge sets of words instead of a few words at a time. Now, when you're learning these large masses of words, are you going to retain 100%? No, you're not. You're probably going to retain, just like you did when you were in school, focusing on 20. But you were capable back then of learning more than 20. Your teacher was limiting you to the challenge with the hope of you getting 100% accuracy with those 20. Now, what is your limit? Is your limit 20? Some of us can remember struggling back there with the 20. We were happy to end the week getting 90% on our test, which would have been 18 out of 20 correct. But many of us, we mastered the 20 words by the time of the pre-test on Wednesday. And there was no reason other than the creation of the lesson plan to hold us back. So many of us had the opportunity and the ability to learn 30 words, 40 words, 50 words a week. But we were held back so that we could look good, and the teacher could look good, and the system could look good because of our achievement. Now, there were always those few people in our class, and you might remember someone specifically, who didn't follow the rules, who was always outside the box. Those sort of geniuses in our midst. They didn't wait for next week to learn one more word beyond the 20. They learned another word whenever they wanted to. They didn't wait to turn 17, 18, 19 to go to college. Many of them were learning college material when they were in the fifth grade. And it wasn't in the fifth grade manual. They just did it because they were free spirits and they had the independence to go outside the box. If you were like me, when I was in the 5th grade, I wanted to please the teacher. And the greater majority of kids want to please the teacher. And you want to follow their rules. And so in many, many ways, the schools plan for us, the curriculum that we are a part of, taught us that we can only learn in limited amounts. And it actually held most of us back from being all that we can be. The different skill set in learning Scrabble and teaching Scrabble to others is to unlock our minds and tempt us with the information that is true, that there are no limits on what you can learn. You can learn anything. We were given that message. You can become anything you want to become. You can learn anything you want to learn. We were told that, but we weren't given the pattern, the lesson plan, the outright encouragement to go ahead and do that. So if you want to become a Scrabble player, first of all, I've told you once, I'm going to tell you again, yes, you can do it. All you have to do is apply some of these other skill sets to your plan, and you will become it. You really will. And if you only learn 15% of the words, you are going to be 3 times better than 98% of the people on the street. How many of the people become expert Maven Scrabble players? 2%. And you can become part of the 2%, or I see myself as at the bottom of that 2%. I'm at the bottom of the list of experts. And how did I get there? I got there by employing these skill sets that no one taught me before. I learned them from other Scrabble players. And so let's talk about a couple of those things that you can be doing that I find a lot of fun, and hopefully you'll find it a lot of fun too. When I first became a Scrabble player at competitive clubs, I met a woman. Her last name was Miller. Edna Miller was her name. I'm sure Edna has passed on by now, but she's probably one of my greatest teachers in Scrabble. Edna was not an expert player by any means, and maybe she didn't even know that she was teaching me something important at the time. Edna was a real enthusiastic Scrabble player, and she had many interests. She was a coin collector. I think that's called a numismatist. Well, somebody will correct me if
now
I'm
you
wrong.
should know. You're the letter man who makes up the
But
words.
remember, I can probably spell it for you, but don't give me any credit for knowing what it means. But Edna Miller, being this coin collector and being a Scrabble player, was aware of certain words that are in our Scrabble dictionary, where the definition is a monetary unit. So she knew some of these words that she used in playing the game of Scrabble She played the word krone, Krone, which is a monetary unit. She played the word ngwee, Ngwee, which is a monetary unit. But she only knew maybe a handful of them. And the reason they stuck with her is because she's a coin collector. And then when she learned ngwee, which I believe was a coin from Nigeria, in her coin collecting, she went out to try to obtain one. And she saw me one day at the Scrabble Club, and I was talking about a word list that I had made. I had made the dog list, DOG. I found all the words that began with dog, like dogma, and then I found all of the words that ended with dog, like sheepdog, and I put them all on a list, and I was showing it around in club. And Edna saw it, and she just sat up, like, instantly. And she came over to me, and she said, "Do you like making lists?" And I said, "Yeah, I had a pretty good time making this list. And look at all the words on this list. There had to be 50 or more. And I was already beginning to remember most of the words on the list." And she said, "Would you make a list for me?" And I said, "Well, I'll consider it. What do you want?" She says, "I would like a list of all the words in the OSPD that are coins or monetary units." Well, that sort of piqued my interest. And I said, "I could do that," but I said, "It's not going to come quickly because it takes a lot of work." And she says, "Well, I'm even willing to pay you for this." And this was in 1987. She, let's see, she offered me $25 to make her a list of all the monetary unit, the words that are monetary units that are legal to play in the game of Scrabble. So I said, fine. And I said, "Well, I'll do it as quickly as I can, but I don't know how long this will take." So I went home and I began to make the list the same way I made my dog list. Now, 1987 was before personal computers. 1987 was the time before anagrammers, the handheld devices that unscramble letters. So what did I do? I went home and I got the OSPD and I opened the first page and I put my finger at the top of the left-hand column and I put it specifically on the definition, and I slowly moved my finger down the page.
Oh, my God.
Looking for words that have a definition of a monetary unit. And page number one went fairly quickly, and then page number 2, and page number 3, and somewhere along the line, I discovered a word that had monetary unit written after it. And on my list of paper, I wrote it down. Now, I did have a computer at the time, but everything that I was creating was still basically pencil paper. And then what I did, after I wrote it there, I took out a 3x5 flashcard and I made a flashcard for it. I put the answer on one side, and then on the flip side, I took the letters from the answer and I listed them in alphabetical order. So when I got to Engui, I wrote Engui on one side, and on the other side it said EEGNW. Those are the letters in Engui. Well, I got so excited after I found the first one or two words, I kept going page by page. I remember a couple times where I got up from the chair that I was sitting at, had to go to the bathroom, came back and continued, got hungry, got up from the chair, went to the kitchen, fixed myself a snack, came back to the chair. By the time I looked up and I was really getting tired, it was something like 5 o'clock in the morning. I put a marker in the dictionary. I stumbled off the bed, fell asleep. Probably only slept about 3-4 hours. Got up, felt refreshed, went back to my chair, continued on again with my task. By this time, my list was getting longer and longer, probably about 40, 50 words at that point. And at the end of about a week's time, I finished getting through the Z's and hoping I didn't miss anything, but without any quick way to go back and check it out. So now I had the words, I had them on flashcards. I sat down, I did have a computer, so I used my Word program to type out the list so that Edna could read it. And the very next club session, I walked in there with a completed list with about 100 words. Words like Ekpwili, EK, PW, ELE. A word Nagultrum, NG, UL, TR, UM. Why am I remembering these words? Because they meant something to me.
Right.
Because it was part of a project that I was doing. And this is 30 years ago. And I'm remembering all these weird words. Pfennig, TFENNIG. On and on. And then, things like tuppence, TWOPENCE. It just goes on and on. And it was fun. And before I gave Edna the set of flashcards, I made an extra set for me to keep for myself.
Sure.
Edna was so thrilled, and she went on within the next week to learn the whole set of flashcards, all 100 or so of them. And she became famous for playing those words at tournaments. And the word spread, and more people asked me to make up lists. And do you know how many times I've gone through the dictionary like that? I bet I've gone through the dictionary line by line 100 times in the last 30 years. And just before calling you today, I was doing it again because as I was thinking about what we should talk about today, I remembered that you and I had a conversation back last February, and we were talking about creating lists. And I was sharing some of the same information. And you asked me if I would make you a list of sports words.
Oh, my gosh.
Remember that?
Yes, I do. Yep.
So as I was doing this lesson today, this is one of the great things about learning and about teaching. you have these things that you've thought about, and it sort of gets buried bit in the recesses of your memory. So as I was doing this thinking today, all of a sudden I remembered that I had not made that list for you. And so at 11:30 this morning, before I called you, I opened my dictionary and I started going line by line looking for words that related to sports. And I've only gone through about 30 pages so far. And here are the A words that I have that are sort of sports related. The first one was acrobat.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Then active, which is related to most sports.
Okay.
Actor.
Okay.
Actress.
Interesting.
Agent.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like this one because I use this word when I'm teaching hooks. So the word is a horse. It's one word. A horse.
A horse.
Yeah. Do you know what a horse means?
Is that in gymnastics?
No.
No. What does it mean? A horse.
It means to be on a horse.
Really?
Yeah. So if you ride horses,
okay,
when you get on top of it, you're a horse.
A horse. Okay.
And remember that A is a great hook for horse.
Absolutely.
And I bet you get challenged.
Oh, I'm sure.
Now, what I did with Edna, when I gave her the list, I gave her a sort of warning. When I create a list and I'm doing a lot of typing, a lot of times I will make typos.
Okay.
I did have a word program that, could find errors by editing. But here's what happens when you're making specialty lists. Your dictionary that's doing the word check doesn't always have these specialty words, like a horse.
Yep.
A horse comes from the Scrabble dictionary. It may or may not be in the Webster. So what I told Edna is, as she goes about learning these, verify them by double checking the words on the list with the words in the OSPD or on the OWL.
Makes sense.
And then I told her to also verify and double check what I put on the flashcards. Even though those were written out by hand, it's very easy when you're doing quantities of things that you can make an error.
Absolutely.
So I'm telling you the same thing.
Okay.
That especially like if you get my emails on Facebook or my announcements on Facebook, I'll frequently put a list of things. You can trust me 98% of the time, but here's a funny little story. When I started making the flashcards in quantity, I started with the stems, which are high probability words that lead to bingos.
Right.
A bingo earns you 50 points. That's why you'll want to learn them. The highest probability bingo is satine, Satine. And the satine list, satine plus L, has a number of different answers. One of them is elastin, Elastin. So a woman named Sharon Simo asked me to make her the satine stems on flashcards. And that's what I did. 26 cards in the set. The first one is satine plus A, which is Tanius and Antasia, all the way to the last one, which is satine plus Z, which is Zaniest, and in the middle was satine plus L, which was supposed to be Elastin, Elastin. And I made a mistake. I wrote it down wrong. I wrote L Satan, Elsatin. Sharon studied and studied the satine cards that I gave her. And about 6 months later, when she was playing in a tournament, she got satine plus L on her rack. She gave a big grin and put down L Satan.
Oh, no.
And her opponent quickly challenged her, and she took it off the board. Well, she called me that night and reamed me out.
I don't blame her.
Because, yeah, I don't blame her either. And I said, I just apologized profusely. And I said, I'm so sorry, Sharon, but you have to go back to those cards and do a double check and proof them and make sure that I didn't mess up anything else.
Right.
So, I mean, that happened close to 30 years ago. It's like it happened yesterday in my memory.
Absolutely.
And I do so many of these sets, and I honestly do try to proof them. But it's because I'm a little bit sloppy. I'm 2% sloppy, and I'm doing so many, and I'm always so enthusiastic about getting the final product out there. And when you're dealing with these Scrabble words, they're not normal words.
Right, exactly.
Even a word like elastin, which is good, I never knew that before I made the satine else card.
Right.
And so that's not the only 7-letter word that's in that set, by the way. I think there are 4 or 5 different ones. Slainte, Slainte, is in that set.
Okay.
Saltine, Saltine, and others as well. So whether you're getting it from me or you're getting it from someone else, I'm always looking for typos and errors in other people's work, and you'll frequently find it in a book that
Sure.
you're reading or in a list that you see somewhere. I always have some paper and a pencil next to me when I'm reading or studying, and I'll make notes of these things, and I'll check them, and I'll change them on my copy. So I just shared with you how you make a word list. Today, it's a little bit easier because we have computers that can do magical things. Let's say you wanted to make the list of words. Let's say we wanted to make the cat list. Well, you can easily go to one of those handheld anagrammers and put in CAT and let's say 4 more question marks. A question mark equals a variable.
Okay.
It can be anything from A to Z. And so I've got 7 in there, and I'll hit enter, and it, in a matter of 2 seconds, will unscramble it and give you all the words that include CAT. Now, they won't always be right together like CAT, but there are programs out there like WordList Pro and like Ziziva. With Ziziva, you put in CAT and then you put in a I'm trying to think of the diacritical mark that goes there. Well, you put in this mark and then you hit enter and it'll give you all the words that begin with C, like catnap.
Okay.
Then you can put it's an asterisk. You can put the asterisk in front of CAT, hit the button, and it'll give you all the words that end with C, or with the word cat.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if tabby cat is one of them. Another way you can look up all the words that end in a particular series is with my backwards dictionary, where everything is alphabetized from right to left instead of left to right. So you can have a hard copy by using the backwards dictionary. So that's how you do a word list. Did you have a question?
No.
Okay. The next tool that we use when we're creating lists and we want to learn things in quantity is we do sets of flashcards. I call them whiz cards. I name them whiz cards because whiz cards only have official Scrabble words on them. So you can go out and buy sets of flashcards, but if you do that, you have to be aware that some of the words on those cards may not be on the official Scrabble word list. Let me, at this time while I'm saying that, also forewarn you, there are many books out on the shelves in bookstores, let's say on the shelf where they have game-related books.
Okay.
You can find many Scrabble books that say they're Scrabble books, but they don't have all the correct Scrabble words. Now, why is that? Some of the books that are there, if you look at the copyright, were written 30, 40 years ago. Back then, the OSPD was the first edition. Today, we use the 6th edition. So each of those editions included adding and subtracting words from the original list. I'm guessing that the original list had 100,000 words on it. Today's version has 170,000 words in it. The word committee over time has added and subtracted words. The word DA is a good example. Originally, the word da, was in the official Scrabble word list. Somewhere in the 1990s, it was taken out, and it was no longer a legal word. Somewhere again in the early 2000s, it was put back. Why it was added and taken out, who knows? On the current list, it is good, but you need to verify and check things, or you'll have the same experience as my friend Sharon did when she played El Satan.
Yeah.
So be forewarned, and those are two things that will help you learn larger number of words. And one of the things that I do, and that you can do too, is you can use your current computer to create video flashcards. Now, I have just been working on STEM-related sets. And let me tell you about how I create this set so you can create it by yourself at home. The first thing I did was I found a program that I can use. I work on the Mac, and the name of the program on Mac is called Keynote. The same program equivalent to Keynote on non-Mac computers is called PowerPoint. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Keynote and PowerPoint allow you to make slides, and you can make an unlimited number of slides in a particular set. Now, let me tell you this. If you want to end up having a set that you can share with your friends, if you share it by sending it by email, some email will limit the size of your file.
Right.
So you don't want to do what I did in my first file. I made a file with 1,000 slides. When I went to send it, I couldn't send it. So I had two choices. I could modify the set and divide it in two, or I put it on a thumb drive and I sent the thumb drive to my friend. So what I did was the first set was for satine. Now, I did satine 6s to 7s. So if you take the satine word, satine plus A has a whole bunch of different bingos. So what I did is I put satine plus A on the first slide. The second slide had all the bingos, satine plus A, Antasia, Tanius. The next slide was satine B. The next slide was the answers. So this set had 52 cards in it. But then this week, I was working on the 6s to 8s, satine plus AA, satine plus AB. So 6s to 8s with satine. Let me open it for you and I'll tell you what it is. Well, there is no satine AA or satine AB. But the next is satine AC, which is estancia. Now, how do you get these words that you may not know? Where did I find estancia? I went to my handheld anagrammer, and I put in satine. First I did satine AA, and it didn't have an 8-letter word. Then I put satine AB. There was no 8-letter word. Then when I put in satine AC, it came up with estancia. So I put that on the back side of that flashcard. Now, what is the number of possibilities? AA, AB, AC. It's 25 for A, 25 for B. So it's 25, 26, 25, 24, 23, 21, etc. So that ends up being well over 500 different combinations. But they all don't have 8-letter words. Out of the 500 or so possibilities, 130 of those satine plus 2 letters had words. For instance, satine plus F is fantasy. Satine plus AH is asthenia. Satine plus A-M is amentias and animates. So here, when you get to satine plus AR, there are 5 answers: Anticera, Artesian, Raffinese, Centaurea, and C-Train. When would you use an 8-letter word like these that I'm studying right now?
When would you use it?
Yeah. Why would I bother to learn an 8-letter word?
Well, you're going to get more points. You're definitely going to get a bingo out of it.
All right. How would you play a bingo of 8 letters?
Well, obviously, the 8th letter is the one that's already on the board.
Exactly. Now, if you can see, let's say the first person plays a word 5 letters long horizontally, and you're sitting there with 7 letters that almost make up a bingo, and using one of those letters on the board, you can play through it using that as your 8th letter. And the reason I started studying the satine plus 2 letters is these are the highest probability. So even though I might not know the word C-train, if I have satine plus AR, so let's say I have satine A, which is Taenius Antasia, but it doesn't play on my board, but there's an R sitting there, and if I can recall that satine AR is C-train, or one of those others that I just read to you, it's playable.
Right.
And it's a bingo.
Yep.
So that's why I bother studying these. Now, is that where you should begin studying? Probably not. Although some people, they'll study lists, they'll study short flashcards, and then they'll study some of these STEM flashcards. You mix it up so you keep your interest high. Most people get burned out and get bored if they're doing the same thing day after day after day. So whatever your study pattern is, mix it up, and you'll be better off for that. I think I'm going to stop giving advice for today.
Sounds good.
I've probably overloaded you.
Well, for people who may feel overloaded, just so they know, you can always just stop in the middle of listening and come back to it, because your podcasts stay up there for indefinite periods of time. So don't feel overloaded, and make sure you share it with other people.
Absolutely. Sharing with other people also reinforces it within you.
Absolutely.
And spend some time this week. Try to make a list of things that you like by running your finger down the dictionary. See how far you can go. There are all kinds of things: animals, fish, birds, colors, chemical compounds. Go ahead, pick your topic, make your list, have fun at it. And if you make a list that you're willing to share, send it to me at my email, jftsoy.moss@gmail.com.
And you know what? I think that would be a great way to celebrate this week for you, because you have not only a birthday, you have an anniversary. So I think everybody should go out and make a list and send it to Gary for his birthday. Last year was 77, so this year it's 78 and as young as can be. So,
well, thank you very much. And anyone who sends a list, I'll be happy to share it with everybody else.
Sounds terrific. Well, we'll get back to you next week, okay?
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.